Hi everybody, Will Reddick here. I want to show you a new simulation slash visualizer that we've been starting to work on for looking at how pools operate across local economic networks. You guys are probably familiar with some of these older visualizations where we're looking at how nodes in the network are forming. So we can see down below here network activity, reports going on, and we can see nodes in the network starting to exchange with each other. And this is kind of a cluster view. And then you can also look on Serefo Network at where these networks are around the world. So you can look at like where businesses or merchant networks or community groups are reporting their offers. And so we're going to zoom into one of these here on the Kenyan coast in this area here. And so I picked out 5 pools that are in this area because I know them quite well because our headquarters is just there. And one of those pools, I'll just open it here, looks like this. So essentially what's happening is that the members of the local community are listing what it is that they offer in the network. And you can see here like there's credit available because I'm logged into the system. I have some credit within that network. I could exchange to get some gift cards. Think of these things like gift cards or vouchers. And I could get some farming training, childcare services, housekeeping, milk. I could get some ducks, or I could even get loans in national currency from these groups. So think of this thing as as kind of like a credit union that holds more than just money, but it also holds commitments for goods and services of the members. Okay, so one thing that's been really important is to understand how money and these commitments kind of interact with each other. So this is holding more than just money again. It's holding commitments of the members, and they're able to trade those with each other. They can swap and trade with each other with or without national currency. So in this visualizer, I'm going to take those 5 groups here on the coast. And what I've done is, based on where the vouchers and where the reports are, I've put vague locations for the agents, all the different members of those groups and the pools themselves. So these big guys, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, these larger ones with white in them, those are the pools themselves. So here's Upendo, Ngubuni, Nema, and Kiriba. So this is what's inside them. So this is their offerings, like I was showing you before, but just kind of looking at the raw data. And I want to go through a few different kind of interactions to demonstrate how these things are working. So if I go to an event here, let's say 150, kind of mapped out some of these. So in this example, so this is like earlier this year when this pool was just getting started. What happened was that there was an event, a day, where the community came together and said, we are going to now start seeding that pool. We're going to deposit our commitments into the pool, our gift cards. So this person had made a gift card called Kabibi, which is redeemable for rice here. And she's putting 3,600 shillings worth of Kabibis into the pool. She's the first person to put into the pool. And if we look at that over the next few days, if I zoom forward a few days, we'll see now there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people have put into that pool. And if we keep going, eventually that same pool has quite a bit more in it. Now here it is. So now it gets up to 54,000 shillings. And so basically there's no actual shillings there yet. The Kenyan shillings are still 0. But what they've done is they've all pooled similar amounts of commitments into the pool. And they've been given the right to borrow from each other. And when they borrow, what they're doing is they're pulling out other vouchers that they need from the pool and using those like a gift card to get other services from the community. And when they do that, they also put in more of their own voucher as a swap as their commitment to repay later. So they end up in a communal relational debt with the community. Locally, this is called, or very similar anyways, to what we call mweria. In Bhutan, this would be called a latsab. In general, we call these like rotational labor groups where they're swapping commitments with each other. And in general, we call these things commitment pools, but we can think of them as kind of curated marketplaces. They're holding assets, just like a credit union one, but they're also acting as a marketplace. We can also look at where national currency starts to come into those pools. So here's an example where $180 is being put into this pool. This is coming from a donation that was a part of a basic income program. So instead of giving money directly to community members, they're giving it to the group itself, so they can transparently see how the members share and use that funding. We can also look at a repayment as well. So if I look at, let's say 1384. So this is someone using the pool now. They've borrowed from the pool and now they're repaying into the pool as well. So in this case, this person is swapping, putting some money back into the pool. So this is repaying a loan from the community, and they're taking back out their own voucher, or some amount of their own voucher. So in this case, they're taking out this, let's see what he's got here, this 1,000 TN. So those were his vouchers that he's now taking back out of the pool for chicken, which means that he now has more credit in the pool. He can use those TNs back into the pool to take out another cash loan if available in the next cycle, or he can take out other goods and services from the group, right? I also want to show you kind of, what a group activity looks like. So if I go to, let me just go to the end here, and we can look at some of what those look like. So whenever they're doing a large group activities, usually there's some reporting going on. And so here's the latest. This is just a few days ago. And so if I look at that activity, so there's a lot going on during this activity. I can look at all these interactions going on, right? I can look at the events happening around them. And essentially what's happening is the host of that event, this is like a day where they are putting a whole bunch of their vouchers into the pool. And see if we can see that here. So they're swapping a whole bunch of, let's say here. So for example, they're swapping, let's see if I can find that event here. Right? So they're swapping their own voucher to pull out other vouchers, and then they're spending those vouchers on the participants that come and help them that day. And so in this day, I don't know what they were doing. Let's see, they were adding compost to a kitchen garden. So anyone who came and brought compost that day, right, what happened was that their vouchers were removed from the pool and sent back to them. In other words, they redeemed their promises that day, and they all got more credit in the network as a result. Okay, so this is an example where like one woman in the village is saying, I need everyone to come and help me. So this person's saying, everybody come and help me that day. Anyone who can. She goes into debt to the community pool, and they all get some credit to the community pool. Okay, and she's going to pay that back later on by visiting their farms, right? And anybody, including the public here, could buy her vouchers out of here, these RMs that she's putting in there, right? In order to get her services, and that would help pay off her debt, right? So the idea is that you've got a holding of goods and services, commitments for goods and services, and national currency. And you can think of national currency as a commitment from the state as well. So there's a bunch of commitments pooled together. People as a group, so these are managed by a group. Each is a different group. They set the rules on who can access that pool of resource, what kind of limits they have on borrowing, and then we can start to see and visualize and use these kind of tools to help the communities that we live around. So we're part of this. I'm in several of these pools as well. I go to these events. We also have goods and services that we offer in these pools out of our home. And we can look at where there's stagnation in the network. We can look at flows in the network. One thing that you might notice here, so if I'm just playing this through time, you're seeing these kind of clusters forming. So these are group activities you're essentially seeing. You're also seeing a lot of trade in and out of the network. So I've lumped all the neighboring pools into one node here. So you're seeing a lot going into that node. And you're also seeing what's going on is national currency on and off ramping. So people are using like their M-Pesa in and out of this network as well, right? So they can load M-Pesa into the network as a stable coin here. And then they can also withdraw it back from the network as well and use their stablecoins back in the rest of the network around here. And maybe one more thing that's interesting before we stop here is to look at settlement. So one thing that we're really, focused on here is that there is a certain amount of local circulation of goods and services. That's this like voucher-to-voucher exchange. And that's reminiscent of these old practices like mueria, traditional practices where people would do labor exchange. Those were not in existence before we started bringing them back in this community. They weren't really doing them anymore. This community had moved here about 50 years ago to work on local plantations here a long time ago, and they lost those traditions. So we've been bringing those back, and the way we've been focused on doing that is to say, well, you're already pooling your money. There's a lot of pooling of money starting to happen in these groups. And if they could also, when they're borrowing, pool their own resources as a collateral, then it means that they could start borrowing from each other in different ways. So they end up with shilling credit in these groups. So if you look at this typical group over time, let's go to the end here, you'll see, they've got generally quite a bit more assets in vouchers, right? In this case, it's like 10x. It varies over time with these groups. So they've got a lot more local resources than they have shillings, and that's the normal case. And that it seems like just about anywhere in the world, if you really measure the local resources, there's a lot more. And so there's a lot of this kind of flows going on. So if we look, averaged over time, we can see that the flow of the local vouchers is almost always larger than the in and outflow of the national currency. And what I'm graphing here is the inflow and outflow of vouchers versus national currency. So the dotted line here is national currency, both going in and out of the pool. So I'm looking at the total flow. And then here in the top line, I'm looking at the vouchers moving in and out. So we can see over time there's definitely a lot more voucher usage in that community, and it seems to be fairly stable over time. And so that was something important for us to look at, is that as the amount of national currency increases in these network, does the voucher usage drop? And so far that has not been the case. And so that's something we're looking out for, is that as more and more money comes into these communities, let's say from donations or even their own savings and loan, do they stop doing their community activities more and more? And because when they're borrowing from these pools of resources, they're always putting in a collateral of their own resource, their own goods or services. It means that they have the ability to now pay off their loan faster as long as other people need that service. So if other people are pulling that collateral out of these pools, it means they're paying off their shilling loans faster, right? And this can all work even when there is no shillings there at all. But we're dealing with a situation where shillings has already the main system in these communities, and we're trying to bring back in a very kind of coherent way these other practices that value their goods and services together. So I hope you enjoy that. I think this type of visualization, like understanding your community networks like this, I think is really valuable. I've learned a lot just by going through this and kind of understanding what's going on in these different interactions, where they're taking place, why they're taking place. So I hope you enjoyed that. Have a great